Right, folks, the next section we're going to talk about here is a little bit about reading a specification. Okay, so reading a specification, the specification itself is one of the core documents within that invitation to tender. And some quick things here about why a clear and correct specification is important. So some highlights here. Again, very, very complex project, and something that we do is we spend entire days just discussing kind of specifications and requirements and things like that with kind of people who are bidding and also professional kind of buyers as well, because it's such a knotty topic. And if you get it wrong, it can be disastrous. Okay, so what we do is we tell the marketplace, specification tells the marketplace what the buyer needs. So you really need to read it and think, oh yeah, I can do this. It will provide the basis for the evaluation of bids. So again, really, really important there. You need to know kind of like what they are measuring you on, what are they evaluating on, and that will be linked, intrinsically linked to the specification. It provides a key piece of audit evidence for the buyer to kind of prove why they bought what they bought. So again, spending public money, National Audit Office, various things like that, and it helps reduce the risk of buying the wrong thing. Now, I'm going to take a slight kind of diversion here. So one of the things I did in my career is I spent 10 years working for the Ministry of Defence, and lots of stuff in procurement and logistics there. And the picture that you can see on the screen there is a Chinook Mark III helicopter. I'm going to give you the edited highlights of this. And one of the reasons I'm going to give you the edited highlights is because all of this information is available in the public domain. Okay, so it's worth looking at this kind of stuff. So I'll give you the very quick version of what happened, what went wrong, and how the MOD bought the wrong thing, okay, which is what procurement professionals in the public sector are all trying to avoid. So the context here is back in kind of like this kind of, so around 2000, 2001, there was an operational pressure for more helicopters. People might remember that from the kind of newsreels and things like that at the time. More helicopters were needed over in the kind of Middle East. And 8 additional helicopters were delivered in 2001 for a cost of £259 million for the 8, which is that cheap? Is it expensive? Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's a lot of money, I can tell you that. Unfortunately, because we bought the wrong helicopters, the MOD bought the wrong helicopters, they weren't considered airworthy, so couldn't fly. And they couldn't fly in bad weather, they couldn't fly when it was cloudy, they couldn't fly at night. They couldn't fly if it was raining. So a very, very limited use certainly in this country in terms of kind of operational windows there. In 2004, in the National Audit Office report, then it was described as one of the worst examples of equipment procurement, which is kind of something that you don't really want to have on your CV as a procurement professional. In 2000, after that, they kind of started a fix program, but in 2007, the MOD changed their mind about how they wanted to rectify this problem and cancelled the fix program. And as of 2017, the fleet still hadn't flown operationally, and the estimated price tag to fix the mistakes up at that point was an additional 500 million on top of the 259 million that they'd already spent. So we're talking about best part of 760 million pounds here for 8 helicopters that still weren't flying in 2017. Now, my contacts in the mod tell me that they are flying as of this last year, which is good. So it's only taken them 20 years to put these things right. Now, the reason I mention this is, again, it's one of those things where it's, again, I've given you the link there. There's a couple of different reports from National Audit Office around this kind of thing. But ultimately, when there was a question asked of the chap who was in charge of this at the time, what went wrong? And he brought it back to the specification. And effectively, he said, the specification that they wrote was not appropriate. The requirements were at odds with each other. There was over 100 essential requirements, some of which the technology didn't exist to actually deliver those requirements. So it's really one of those things where actually getting the specification right is so important. And very quickly, this is how we kind of do that. So I do a lot of stuff with procurement professionals around this idea of defining your requirements. So describing the nature, scope, meaning, and boundaries. What actually is what kind of getting that bit right at the top of the funnel. Because then that sets us off on the right track for what we're going to buy. If we set off on the wrong thing, well, with our scope too narrow or too broad, we're going to potentially buy the wrong thing. You then get into kind of sort of structuring and kind of classification, so kind of groupings of requirements. Prioritizing and stress testing. Again, this is this thing of making sure that actually kind of you're describing in the specification or the procurement kind of organization is describing what's important to them, but also have stress tested the requirements. So for example, they're not asking for something that physically doesn't exist. Really, really important. And again, something that wasn't done with the helicopter procurement, which just talked about a few minutes ago. Documenting and controlling. So you want to have some kind of change control process here to make sure that kind of you have version 1 of the spec, version 2, version 3, and therefore the right version goes out with the invitation to tender, and equally the right version is used when kind of measuring the responses against that kind of tender. Testing against bids, just as I described there, and then this idea of fulfillment, which is contract management and benefits tracking. And it's really this bottom bit that we'll talk about here about the bidding process and contracting. So you won't see the top part of the funnel at all. That's going to be invisible to you. But what you are going to see is the version that comes out, and then they're going to test your bid against that version, the specification. And then you're going to fulfill that specification as part of your kind of contract. And what's really important for me when putting together a specification, this is something that you need to look at, is the clues are all there. What is it all about? What are they wanting to buy? And you'll see these words like kind of goods, services, and works. Goods are physical things. You know, stationery is an example of a kind of goods contract. There might be services, cleaning as an example of a kind of service contract, or it might be works. So works is things like construction, you know, building a bridge or whatever that may be. So again, look for that to start with. If you are not in the construction industry, you probably aren't going to be bidding for kind of works-based kind of contracts. We then use this magical language in the public sector around kind of length of the contract, 3 + 1 + 1, 3 + 1 + 2, 3 + 2 + 1. What it means, the first number is the guaranteed length of the contract, and then the other numbers are optional extensions. A 3 + 1 + 1 is not a 5-year contract. It is a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions. So when you are bidding, you need to make sure that you have covered your costs within that 3 years, because actually you may not get the other 2. Or if you are, at least you understand that, you can take that risk across the other 2, but that's down to you. If you think you're only going to make any profit in the last 2 optional years, then you may want to consider whether you want to bid for that or not, on the basis that actually, you know, you could do that 3 years, and then the contracting authority would go, well, thank you very much, that's it, we're done. We're not going to do the other 2 years because we don't need it anymore. So again, have a look at those kind of things. Again, look at the total value of the contract. When you're looking at total value of the contract in the advert, it will be the through life, whole life cost ex VAT. Okay, and that will actually be for the 5 years. So they have to put the cost out there for the 5 years, even though you're only guaranteed 3 in this particular example. Again, something to watch for there, how that you might get caught out by that. And this final point on this slide is it clear what the buyer is looking to buy here? So kind of, are they looking to buy cutting edge technology? You know, is this what they're doing? Is this the nature of it? And that this one of the jobs I used to do is I used to work in the ambulance service, and that thing you can see there is obviously like a drone, and it's got a defibrillator on it. So the idea is that you can get that to people who are kind of inaccessible, or you can get there quickly, or that kind of thing. You'll mount rescue teams and stuff like that. The second thing you can see there is a Segway. And it might be, I've put here something fun. Realistically, what you're looking at there is you're looking at moving emergency medical personnel around somewhere large, like a shopping mall or a airport or somewhere like that. Okay, so that's something you can think about there. Is it something fun we want to buy? Is it something quirky? Or actually, let's be honest, is it just more of the same? If the ambulance service wants more ambulances, then their specification should be very clear that they want more ambulances. So they don't get people tendering with Segways or drones or whatever it may be. They want more ambulances. So that's what they're going to ask for. So again, the clues are all there, but everything that you need should be in that specification if it has been put together properly.